ECSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app. Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it's that time of the week for our closing bell edition with good friend and colleague, Mr. Ron Momorlewski at Ron A Sports. Please follow him on X. As I have in the headline, no one talks NFL and college football like Ron, and must follow. Not days, not weeks, not months, not years, but decades of information. And he has an AOL account just like me. So come on board. But first and foremost, a shout out to our proud sponsors and partnerships. It's WagerWire. Head on over to Google Play, download the app. It is free. And of course, AtlantaSteaksAndSeafood.com. Steaks, seafood, chops, appetizers, wines. Terry's got it all. It's 'tis the season time. Thanksgiving and Christmas right around the corner. Let him do all the work. Let him send you the product you'll need to have a great Thanksgiving or Christmas party. So without further ado, let's bring him on, Mr. Ron Momorlewski. What's up, Ron?
Good afternoon, Jeff. Bracing for storms, but the storm is not just in the weather. The storm could be in the NCAA and the NFL as we hit the closing stretch of the NCAA. It's going to be a fascinating November.
And the funny thing is, as I said backstage, and I kind of teased you, is every year there was that weekend where crashes everywhere. Everyone seems to have the blueprint. Biff's Almanac. We know who's in the final 12. We know the 4 that are getting their bye. And then all of a sudden, you didn't see that, and we're in chaos. You talked about the Big Ten. You talked about the Big 12. My headliner here, Georgia or Bama on upset alert. And my teaser to you is, what happens if you wake up Sunday morning and Oklahoma shocks Bama and Texas shocks Georgia? What a shakeup in the top 12 that would be.
Yeah, then you're going to have a bunch of 10-2 and 9-3 teams, perhaps, wondering how many of them get in. I've said all along that we're going to see at least 4 SEC teams in there, and maybe some of the best paths to getting into the 12-team playoff is not by getting into the championship game, but by just missing it, kind of like an Ohio State or somebody like that. If you just miss it, get a little bit extra rest. Sure, you may have a road game, or at least you may have that extra game. You won't have that bye, but the bye didn't matter last year. If those 2 teams lose, it puts Vandy back in the picture. It puts Mississippi squarely in the picture. Of course, they have a game against Florida, which is a little different than it was a couple weeks ago since Florida fired their coach. So it's just going to be all kinds of chaos. But like I mentioned to you before we started the show, a lot of it is dependent on what happens with things going on outside of the conference. The 2 most important games to the SEC outside of the SEC is what happens to Notre Dame. If Notre Dame runs the table, they probably have a spot in the playoffs, assuming that they're still ahead of Miami. And if they're not ahead of Miami, then the ACC somehow has 2 spots. And then what happens to Michigan? Because Michigan might be one of the least talked about teams the last month. Nobody's thinking about Michigan. But Michigan is expected to beat Northwestern, expected to beat their next opponent, and then guess who comes in? Ohio State. If Michigan runs the table, they're in. We've got 4 Big Ten teams. If we have 4 Big Ten teams and we have Notre Dame, we've just squeezed the SEC one more time.
Well, I read the market, as you know, and I can read through the tea leaves. And in August, the pre-flop, the Penn States, the Clemsons, the Texases, who, as I said earlier today, didn't have to go to Ohio State and play them opening day. They could have played a UL Monroe and been 35-point favorites. No, they chose to go to the defending champs, and they lost. And then they lose again. But looking at where they're situated, looking at their schedule, an upset win between the hedges Saturday, 6-point underdogs at Georgia, come home to host Arkansas, a team they're supposed to win, and oh, by the way, Thanksgiving weekend, host undefeated Texas A&M.
Yeah, so if they win all 3, they're in for sure. The bigger question is, what if they went 10? What if they lost one of these games and instead of playing Ohio State, they played Tennessee Tech or somebody like that? Maybe you shouldn't use Tennessee Tech because I think they're 10-0. But you get the point. And they played, some directional school, Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan, or somebody like that, instead of going to Ohio State. Is their resume, their strength of schedule at 9-3? Let's say they lose either to A&M or this week. At 9-3, they're probably on the outside looking in because of what's going on. But if they were 10-2 and they didn't play Ohio State, if they would get in with that 10-2 record, there's a flaw in the whole system in terms of equity and equality. And that's something that some of the schools are playing that game. Indiana is going to play that lesser schedule. Texas Tech has that lesser schedule and so on. So they may be great teams. Indiana deserving anyway. Texas Tech might be deserving, but we don't really know.
I want to stay with Texas Tech here first. Played BYU undefeated. You talk about special teams. I had the Texas Tech team total Saturday over 31.5, and I had to go back. I have 10 years of public data since we went public here on January 1st, 2015. In all my history of college football, I've never, ever, ECSI, VIPs, have never kicked 5 field goals in a college game, but yet Texas Tech did that. I mean, their defense has been flawless, and I was thinking of you of every field goal kick. I'm like, you got to be kidding me here. But this Texas Tech team kind of flying, I don't want to say under the radar. Are they a team that you think no one's talking about that deservedly should be in the Final 12?
Yes, I think they are. I'm trying to see what I have on their power rating right now. I'm trying to see. Oh, they're way down here. Yeah, they're in the top 8 or so in power ratings for me. So I have no problems including them in. I think it might have been a little bit of a testament to BYU's defense to play so gritty and to keep them out of the end zone. So let's give some credit to BYU, but Texas Tech defensively, massive improvement over any of the years. Oh, I don't know, in 30 years probably since we've never talked about Texas Tech's defense, and that's why they belong in the top 8 to 10.
What did you see last week that surprised you? Was there a team that you kind of thought you weren't thinking much of that kind of shocked you, or someone that laid an egg? At this time of the year, these teams can't be laying eggs or they're out. Anything kind of really shocked you, Ron?
Yeah, and I have to try to, probably nothing shocks me in the ACC, so that doesn't count. I'm not surprised Indiana had a tough time at Penn State. I mean, if you're going to gear up for the one game and then gear down after that, that was probably it. Was there any other surprising result? I think there might have been one, in the group of 5 kind of area, but I don't recall. Off the top of my head, I don't recall a real surprising result. I might be blanking out on that one. Let's see, who did Nebraska play last week?
Now I'm drawing a blank here.
Yeah, I should have. I should have kept last week's schedule handy, and then I could have answered that. But I don't think I have it handy, unfortunately. So, but I don't. I take that back. I'm going to look at these results right here and see if I could come up with something that was surprising. Well, Wisconsin was a little surprising that they beat Washington. Washington seemed to be gearing, towards something special. Not surprised UConn was able to upset Duke. UConn got off to a really slow start, but now they're really cooking. So that was pretty good. Certainly not surprised because we talked about Kentucky and Florida, and that was not a surprise at all to me that Kentucky beat Florida. So I don't honestly think there were any surprises. I guess I didn't really remember anything that was too surprising there. I thought UCLA would put up a better fight against Nebraska, to be honest, but they didn't.
Looking at this week's schedule, I'll start right there. Virginia, Duke. Duke opened up at 6.5. Now I'm seeing some 4s, 4.5, so the 59. Gave out the UConn team total last week. It was a team. It was a community that wanted to make sure it was ready. Place was packed. It was a shootout at the OK Corral. Moore a few weeks ago getting chastised for not going for 2 in in overtime. Losing in double OT. Not only a shootout at the OK Corral, I think they were 9-point underdogs, and sure enough, UConn wins outright. Now, a perfect bounce back spot, I think, for Duke. Overpriced, overvalued. The public thought around 6.5. Now down at a flat 4. Do you think a good bounce back spot for Duke, or is that still too many points to give a Virginia team?
I think the line moved down probably because the Virginia quarterback must be playing. Because there were some questions. So he's playing. So now you got the line of 4, which is actually, I agree, it's too low. Virginia has been overachieving this year, and they found out that, well, maybe some of their fourth quarter luck, especially with the backup quarterback, wasn't going to come against an underrated Wake Forest team. I don't know what's going on with Duke defensively. They're not playing as strong as I thought they would defensively, but by my metrics, Duke is a better team than Virginia. I would have lined this at 6.5 or 7 at full strength. So I think we get a little bit of value with Duke in this particular game. May not shock me if Virginia pulls the upset because of Duke's defense, but according to my numbers, Duke should be 7 points.
I'm going to go back to UConn, a number that opened at 8.5, now 6.5 against one of the academy schools, Air Force. I don't like to play the emotional game, but the high and where they were last Saturday to face a Duke team, to face, sellout crowd. Now in comes Air Force, a line that has dropped to 6.5. A good flat spot for UConn. Is that too many points in your eyes for the Air Force Academy?
No, I would have set it 7.5. So I understand what you're saying about the flat spot and so on. And I don't recall if Air Force even played last week, but I will say this. It speaks to the advantage Independent has, not a Notre Dame because everybody gets up for Notre Dame, but Connecticut gets to play these teams that are knee deep in conference races, like a Duke, and where they're going to value the ACC more than they're going to value playing Connecticut. How could Duke get up for Connecticut? So from that standpoint, Air Force, if they are rested, I think they're rested. Maybe that mitigates it. But in general, Connecticut has a little advantage being an independent, in my opinion, during the regular season. So I don't really have an opinion on the game, but I would have set the line higher.
I want to go to 7:30. We already touched upon it. Texas, Georgia, between the hedges, a number that opened at 6.5 with a 47.5. Now at the circa 6 minus 15 cents. Next move to 6.5, 49.5. Season on the line for Texas. Big spot for Georgia. And it's a night game, so they'll be on the big stage under the lights between the hedges, Ron.
Yeah, so I guess I would amend what I said earlier in that I thought Mississippi State would score more points on Georgia last week. It's something that I'm a little surprised because Mississippi State's coaching staff, they're really geared to offense. I wasn't surprised that Georgia scored. I was surprised that Mississippi State didn't. So my question is, as nice of a spot as this is for Texas, double revenge from last year, uh, they're ready to go. They understand the task ahead of them. Georgia appears vulnerable, but is Georgia vulnerable now? I wonder if their defense is starting to pick it up, because I rate Mississippi State's defense offense pretty highly, and they really didn't get the job done until late in the game after that first 7-0 lead. So I'm worried about Texas's offense in this game. I think these teams are going to play a tight game. I probably lean to the underdog anyway, but I don't feel like I know who's going to win even versus the spread. I think it's a fascinating game, but anything can happen. I think there's an edge for the Georgia kicking game, if I remember. That would be about, yeah, I have a Georgia kicking game edge, so therefore I think Georgia will pull it out.
The other big game in the SEC, Oklahoma travels to Alabama. I've talked all year, my love affair for Ty Simpson. Alabama loses opening day, hasn't lost since. Very strongly in the top four, getting that first weekend bye. In comes a Sooner team. I think the number was 6 as well. Let me just double check the updated number here. Eyes. Where are you here? And of course, I can't find it. Let me scroll one more time back here, guys. Bear with me. There it is. 3:30 started a line that opened at 7 with a 45 and a hook. Now 6 with a 46.5. Almost identical to the Georgia and Texas game. Thoughts on the Sooners traveling to Roll Tide?
I think there's a strength for each team. Mateer was obviously, he got hurt before the Texas game. He missed a game. He came back. He was nowhere near 100% in the Texas game, but he really wanted to play. So we haven't seen Mateer back to where he was when he had a chance to be a Heisman hopeful. Remember, he was near the top or at the top of the Heisman list. So he's had 2 weeks now since his last game. So I think we're going to see closer to what Mateer is like. And I think Alabama can still be run on. So I think the chance for Mateer to use his legs as well as his arm is a good thing for Oklahoma. Now, on the other side, Alabama's season last year was ruined by Oklahoma, 24-3. And Alabama has revenge. And believe me, they remember that game very, very well. They could cry all they want about not making the playoffs, but 24-3 when you lose that game was a bad factor for them. And that was a good setup. Oklahoma was definitely the right side last year. So I have both of these things in play. I think you're going to get both these teams' best effort. I think Alabama, I like Mateer in this matchup, but I like the revenge factor for Alabama as well. So unfortunately, I can't come on and say, this is my side. I like kind of how it plays out. I'm staying away from this, but I could see a case where Mateer could single. Mateer's one of those guys, almost like Pavia Vanderbilt, where you say, if you put the ball in his hands, maybe he could get it done.
I have to ask you this: the preseason, does Arch come out? Some of the other big name quarterbacks, they were talking about potentially 6 quarterbacks coming in the first round. Everything is flip flop. The name now is Mendoza from Indiana. They say he is the one quarterback coming out that is ready to play and step in there. A, do you agree with that statement? And B, are there other quarterbacks, any other quarterbacks that you see that will be coming out that you think might be able to step right in? Or how do you tier the potential quarterbacks coming out right now?
Yeah, I'll have to take mental notes so I can be more prepared to answer this question in the future, because I generally don't even look at the draft until after the season. I'm just enjoying the season. The people I've seen, in terms of your answer first, A is no. I don't think Mendoza should be the number one quarterback. Does that mean I hate him? No. I don't even know if there's a quarterback that should be number one. A Georgia linebacker or Ohio State linebacker, one of those two, is rumored to be the number one pick in the draft. I haven't seen a linebacker be number one in quite a long time, I believe. So I think you have interchangeable quarterbacks right now. I think you have so many more games to be played that it's a little bit, we don't know. Some of the best quarterbacks don't have enough starts so that we know if they're going to translate their game. Typically, you want 25 or more starts in college before you're ready for the NFL. And typically, you want to have a certain amount of accuracy before you're ready for the NFL. And you want to have a certain amount of mental fortitude before you're ready for the NFL, however, you're going to measure that. So, those are the three combinations. I think some of the quarterbacks I like more than others haven't had 25, 26 starts yet. So, it's still a mess. I'm not ready to undo the mess. But Mendoza, I don't think he's the number one quarterback.
In a transition to the NFL, my backdrop: New England Patriots host the Jets tonight, 8:20. It's the year of the Patriot. Everything is turning Patriots. Looks like they'll miss Joe Burrow by a week next week as they travel to Cincinnati. Last week in this spot, the Raiders traveled to Denver. Denver chewed their food, won and didn't cover. Short week divisional game. In come the Jets, short week divisional game. Yet this line is 13 and a half. Thoughts on the Patriots in this spot? Thoughts on Drake May? Thoughts on the 7-game winning streak?
Yeah, so the Patriots, you're paying a premium if you want the Patriots. There's no way that you can make this 13 and a half. Via power ratings, I could, at full strength, I could probably get to 10 and a half. That's the highest I could get to. Do I want the Jets because there's value that way? Not really, because Justin Fields threw 11 passes in a win last week. He's very erratic. We don't know what's going to happen out of the quarterback spot. Breece Hall is a real asset, but my thoughts on New England is that you have to pass on them. Like it or not, Justin Fields is going to have to pass to make this game competitive, because in the long run, New England forces you to pass. As for Drake May, he's doing wonderful things. He's going against a defense that, with Sauce Gardner on it, was a tough defense to pass on. He would cover one half of the field for you. Now we're starting to get new data on what's it going to look like without Sauce Gardner. We know that the pass rush suffered again. We're talking about a team that has a below average number of sacks. So Drake May is going to have a comfort zone. He's been sacked a lot of times this year. We know that. Not last week, I believe. And I don't think he'll be sacked that much this week either. So I think he'll have a comfort zone. He's certainly proven to be very accurate in his second year. So as long as there's no letdown, I think New England's going to be still running on all cylinders.
The locals today brought up something pretty good. You're starting to see more data on Drake May, what makes him tick. You talked about the sacks. The young Drake May would just look to the left, look to the right, the pocket would collapse, and he'd just run and try to move the chains. This year, he's staying in the pocket longer, not afraid to move forward and quote-unquote get sacked instead of making a mistake. And they're also noticing he loves the deep ball. He loves to make big plays. And so the initial thought was to put pressure on him, blitz. But the locals said, you're almost better off to sit back and try not to blitz run.
Yeah, I mean, they're still figuring things out. You want to have even a little more tape on Drake May before you really know what you're going to do. And he's doing this, for the most part, he was doing this without a perfect running game in stride. Stevenson was starting to find his stride, then he gets hurt. Henderson wasn't being used. So you have a situation where very impressive that he's doing it in the passing game. I like Hunter Henry as a target for him. In fact, I like Hunter Henry tonight as a target for him. I don't think there's a recipe there. I look for New England to add a number one receiver, really go heavy on wide receiver after this year. Very impressive what he's done so far. I don't think there's a good read on him right now.
Well, I think we're jinxed because there was a power surge and my camera went again. That's 2 weeks in a row, Ron.
Oh, no. You're there, though. I hear you.
I am here. AFC, there's a lot of big games in the NFL. Give me your top five power ratings and give me your landscape of the Chiefs in this regards. Week off, we know Andy Reid, extra rest. Go to Denver, season on the line. They can't afford to lose this game. As you would say, we are paying a premium price there. It's up to 4, even 4.5 in some spots.
Yeah, I set it at 3.5, I think, by power rating wise, because Kansas City, top five power ratings, Kansas City is number one. I know their record doesn't indicate it, but they're number one and they belong there. The Rams have moved to number two. The Rams have been ultra impressive for me. Then you have a group, Seattle, Detroit, even Baltimore graded out as a high power rating. Now, if you took the whole season without Lamar Jackson, Baltimore certainly doesn't deserve to be in the top 3, 4, 5, even 8. But where they are with their team right now, with Lamar Jackson, with everybody healthy, with their players, I have Baltimore and Seattle kind of in the 3, 4, and Detroit 5. But I have the Rams a clear second and Kansas City first. So you have a top 2 in the next 3. And yeah, I mean, it's a tough game against Denver. Sean Payton is also good off rest as well. So you have 2 of the better teams in the league that have excelled after having a week off, and they're facing each other.
Gonna say a lot in the AFC, of course. Here we're going to travel over to the NFC and Detroit hosting Philly. A snooze fest. Philly in Green Bay on Monday. Packers have now lost 2 in a row at home. Philly opened up at 1, which was a head scratcher against the Lions. Now up to 2.5, 3 at the Circa. They got what they wanted. They got Eagle money here. Here's a dome team traveling across to the east. Cold weather game on grass. Yet I think the Lions are the side here, Ron.
Well, first of all, I'm sorry to say you called it a snooze fest, because I love defensive struggles where the defenses dictate play. Sometimes you see 3-0 games and you know that, these teams are just terrible. They couldn't score on this defense or that defense. But Philly and Green Bay have really good defenses. And I love 10-7 games. I know I'm in the minority, but I love 10-7 games. I'm not sure who has the advantage in this particular game, because Philly always makes great adjustments after the bye week. And that defense added Jalen Phillips. We talked about it last week, I'm sure, because I talked about it a lot. He was ready to go. And Howie Rose, why do people pick up the phone when Howie Roseman called? I mean, I don't know, because Jalen Phillips was a disruptor against Green Bay, and he adds another element to a young defensive line that you know is going to be really good, but they needed a little bit of time to gel because they lost about 3 of their starters through free agency after the Super Bowl win. So Jared Goff is going to face some pressure, more pressure than he's used to. He faced the pressure and didn't handle it perfectly against Minnesota. We know that caused Dan Campbell to get involved in the decision-making and the play calling, and Detroit pushed all the right buttons. Wonderful, wonderful offense by Detroit. I think it's going to be a really good chess match between Detroit's offense and Philly's really good defense.
Well, the game of the week, I did not have this on my bingo card to start the year, of course. Seattle travels to the Rams. You talked about how you have the Rams solidly as the number 2 team in the NFL. I mean, what more can you ask for Stafford? 25 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Co-MVP with Drake May currently right now. Line that opened at 2.5 now is a solid 3 with a 49 on Sunday, Ron.
Yeah, so I think the line is accurate. 2.5 to 3 makes a lot of sense. I intentionally set it at 3 because I just thought they would get a little bit of a bump. Fair or not fair, people are recognizing Stafford is a better quarterback against Sam Darnold. I think it's more fair because we still want Sam Darnold to keep proving himself. Certainly, the new offense under Kubiak this year has done wonders to the offensive line. They haven't run the ball as well, which is a little surprise, but they've protected Sam Darnold amazingly with just 10 sacks allowed. Jeff, my handicap of this game is I chart the Rams as probably being +1 in the turnover battle. And I do that because I think Sam Darnold is more likely to make a mistake against the Rams' pressure, even with just 10 defensive sacks, than Matthew Stafford is going to make a mistake necessarily against Seattle. We'll see if that's true or not true. I also think the Rams, with Devontae Adams and Kieran Williams, they tend not to fumble the ball away. If we get an even turnover ratio, I would favor Seattle in this game. But if we have that +1 that I'm thinking of with the Rams, which is worth about 3.5 points per turnover, this is going to be one exciting game to sit back and relax and watch it.
Let me see here. I'm just going up here. I'll close with the NFL with this game because I think some people just blindly jump to this side and they forget what the other team has done. Chicago travels to Minnesota, a line that opened up at 2.5 with a 46.5. Currently 2.5 with a 48.5. Now you have to go back in your memory bank. It took a fourth quarter miracle when the light bulb finally went on for J.J. McCarthy on that Monday night game, and I think they scored 3 touchdowns, and they come from behind to beat them. Bears started the season slow, and then all of a sudden they caught wind. And I know we talk about the Patriots winning 7 games in a row, but this Bears team, if I'm correct, is 6-1 in their last 7, and yet a 2.5 3-point. I think it's a Bears number. Now Minnesota 2 weeks ago were the darling, of course. They went into Detroit and just shocked them. They steamrolled them. Then in comes Lamar Jackson and company. 5 field goals from them. Couldn't score in the red zone. Thoughts on Minnesota and the Bears on Sunday?
Yeah, so I have really 2 things that I've looked at in this game, and they're opposed to each other. I mean, they're not in alignment. New coaches who win early, it gets contagious. And so Chicago, remember all their close losses last year? They found weird ways to lose games. And that's gone now. They believe they can win. And that really intensifies when a coach wins early. So that's bonus Chicago. What I don't like about Chicago is their stats sheet, especially defensively, is terrible. It speaks of a 3-6 team, not a 6-3 team. You're talking about a team that allows an excess of 5 yards per carry on the ground. You're talking about a team that allows 7 out of every 10 passes to be completed. They can rush the passer, but it's kind of league average. They're feasting on turnovers, a +14 turnover ratio. And I believe Caleb Williams is the kind of quarterback who doesn't throw interceptions. So that's good. But they can't always rely on having a +2 turnover ratio every single week. +14 at this stage of the season is incredible. So I think at some point they regress back to the pack. I think at some point that they're not going to be able to make these comebacks. And we'll see. If Minnie hasn't played well defensively either. The Brian Flores effect, we talk about him a lot, but they have allowed 23.5 points per game. So not everything is perfect there. Justin Jefferson's going to be really hard to stop in this game. Question is J.J. McCarthy in his 4th ever start going to be capable enough to feast with Jefferson? But as a team, I think we're looking at regression for Chicago somewhere down the road.
I do have one more question. I got to go back to the AFC. The number, the look ahead, and where it is. I couldn't figure out why. Now, I mean, I know why I think it was. I'm talking about Tampa Bay and Buffalo. Opened at 6 with a 49.5. This Buffalo team now struggling of late. They absolutely laid an egg in Miami. The Bucks coming off the loss to the Patriots opened at 6, now 5.5 with the 47. When I see that number of 6, there's only one way that can go, and that's down to 5.5, 5, which it stands now. I think the Bucks on the road this year have been a team that have had 3 walk-offs to start. They have been road warriors. Yet I looked at the weather. I was like, is it going to be snowy? No, it's going to be 52 degrees. Tell me why that opened at 6. I don't understand it, Ron.
Yeah, I opened it at 5, so I can't tell you why it opened at 6 in terms of that. These are two teams that I think still we have more questions than answers with both of these teams. We didn't think we would have as many questions on Buffalo, but now we do. Uh, if you asked me what were the surprises in the NFL last week, one of them would have been Houston coming back from 29-10 because I didn't think they had it in them given the way their season had gone. And this would have been a surprise too. Buffalo just not showing up against Miami, knowing that they weren't even in first place. They were in second place. So why wouldn't they show up for a divisional game? That was a surprise to me. So we have questions about Buffalo. And given the roster the way it is with Tampa, with wide receivers out, with their lead running back out and so on, I think we have questions about Tampa as well, because they basically have not led to start to finish in just one game this year, something like that. So we have questions offensively. We have questions defensively. I don't know where these teams are exactly at. This is a 2-game stretch for Tampa that is going to be really, really hard. Then it gets easier. And Buffalo, imagine if they lost this game, they might not even, if the season ended on Monday, they might not even be in the playoffs. That's not what Buffalo thought they were going to be at the beginning of the year. Beginning of the year, they were already thinking they were going to be clinching by the end of November. So I think these two teams are not at all hitting it on all cylinders, and they have to find their true identity right now.
Well, as we always wrap up this spot of the show, I give you that nice tight 7.5 yard button hook for Ron's closing thoughts.
Okay, so very interesting card this week in the NFL. We have 9 divisional matchups, and we have some other matchups we didn't even get to, such as the Chargers and the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is essentially, I don't want to say it's a playoff elimination game for the Chargers, but it's a tiebreaker game because the winner of that game will win the head-to-head tiebreaker if they have the same record come the end of the regular season. So I think it's a definite do or die for Jacksonville, and it may have implications for the Chargers as well. Cincinnati, we talked about Joe Burrow might come back in a week or two. If they could find any sort of defense, if they beat Pittsburgh, they're a game behind Pittsburgh, but they're not really a game behind Pittsburgh because they would have been gone 2-0 against Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh still has 2 games against Baltimore left. If Baltimore plays Cleveland, that's a divisional game that has implications, tiebreaker implications. We have so many really good games this week that have playoff implications. So if you have convictions beforehand and you're a handicapper and you want to say, I want to take a little bit of money on them to make the playoffs or not make the playoffs, or to win the division or not win the division, the question you have, if you have a conviction, you might want to do it before the end of the results of this week, because afterwards, some of the lines are going to change. Chicago Mini's an important game. We know about Seattle and the Rams, San Francisco. This is one of the most pivotal Week 11 seasons that we've ever had. A lot on the stake this week. So let's hope all the players stay healthy and we see some really great games.
No, and I love that point, Ron, where we grabbed Baltimore 3, 4 weeks ago, plus money to win the division, plus money to make the playoffs. I thought the schedule set up well for them. And I like your thoughts because I've seen the odds of if Jacksonville wins to make the playoffs versus a loss, and same with the Chargers. One of the most pivotal games. Chargers opened at 1.5. Now that is shot to 3 there. You talked about, again, Cincinnati with Joe Burrow percolating in the practices. They have that Thanksgiving game circled against the Ravens, but the thought process would be upset the Steelers this week. We can bypass the Thanksgiving game, take the loss maybe against the Ravens or Flacco's last game as they could present it, and then give Joe the extra 10 days there. So a lot of implications, as you said, Seattle and the Rams. Same with Arizona and San Fran, the every other week. The Rams just destroyed the 49ers in a revenge spot there. Now a game where Arizona has committed to Jacoby Brissett, and here's a 49er team that usually does well in Arizona. Good spot for a bounce back there for the Niners, Ron?
Yeah, they're trying to rush Purdy back in this particular game. Don't have a lot of trust in Arizona right now. Wish McCaffrey was running for better yards per carry. But yeah, I'd probably lean San Francisco in this particular game. Too much ground to make up for Arizona. Divisional game, so you're going to get the best effort from both teams. One other spot that didn't take hold that I was mentioning on a different show. I wanted Carolina to win last week against New Orleans because at 6-4, I thought we would get some fantastic odds to go against them the rest of the season. Season win total would have been set probably at 9.5. I would have been all under that one. Unfortunately, Carolina showed its true colors in that particular game. And so technically they're still in the race. They're 5-5, especially with Tampa's next 2 games. But I honestly think we found out who Carolina is. We know who Atlanta is. And so I lost the value, but it's just a lesson. And you're trying to be one step ahead of the odds makers. If this happens, this is what I'm going to do. So I'm charting a course. And I just think that's a good handicapping methodology to use. If this happens, what are you going to do? And then you act on it.
Well, as everyone knows on X to follow you at Ron A Sports. But as we always wrap up the show here, tell them where they can find your other podcasts and times for your shows, Ron.
You can follow me on Twitter X at Ron A Sports, and I will tell people when I'm a guest on other shows and so on. The most staple of the show that I'm on is on Wednesdays. We just brainstorm every single game in the NFL, and we just treat it as a phone conversation, Las Vegas, Chris and I, where we just challenge each other to come up with different things. Yesterday, we talked about a lot of teams and their divisional odds, trying to find some value in where we might hit a divisional future or something like that, and trying to get a handle on some of these teams. We passed the halfway point of the season, but it doesn't mean you stop brainstorming. And so that's what we do on Wednesdays. That's where you'll find me.
All right, everyone, head on over to X at Ron A Sports. Make sure you're following him there. Make sure you check him out on Wednesdays with Las Vegas Chris. Tomorrow morning at 9:15, myself and Scott Webb will be back to recap the in-pocket plays for the NCAA. I'll be a guest with Andrew McGinnis around 10:30. At McGinnis Picks, at Wager Talk, and then 11 o'clock. Nick Hathcote will be back to talk some more college football. Apologies again, back-to-back weeks. Power surge, camera goes out. Ron, great job as always for not fumbling. The internet is undefeated just like Mother Nature. So for myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, the one and only Ron Marmolewski at Ron A Sports. Wish everyone a blessed day. Enjoy the Patriots tonight and stay tuned.